Over the past 6 months, I brought you the stories of frontline workers and the dangers they face in the pandemic. You've heard the stories of poultry workers, teachers, retail workers, subway conductors, and healthcare workers. Now think about building workers, the doormen, the porters, and the janitors who clean the spaces, all of whom are really working 24/7 in major buildings and in apartment buildings in cities all across the nation. Imagine how many people a building worker has to interact with on a given day. People who come and go inside a building. Tens of thousands of workers, 175,000 to be exact, are represented in 11 states and the District of Columbia by Local 32BJ of the Service Employees International Union. To hear some of what those workers are seeing in their workspaces, it's great to have Hipolito Andon, a cleaning and maintenance worker in the famed Rockefeller Plaza in Manhattan. And tell us to start, Hipolito, where you work and what your job is and how long have you been doing it?
Well, Jonathan, I work at 75 Rockefeller. I'm a foreman at this building. I've been here for 7 years. That's 7 years.
And for those people who are not familiar with New York City, 75 Rock is like Rock Center. It's right in the middle of Midtown between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue, right?
Correct, yes.
So it's a pretty busy place, right? There's a lot of stuff happening on a normal time.
Oh, yes, especially during the holidays. The Christmas tree comes up. Forget about it. It's a tourist attraction in this area. A lot of people.
I know it quite well. So tell us what your job is as a foreman, and I assume you became a foreman after working as a, if I can say, rank and file member. So now you have to oversee some folks. What's your daily routine like, more or less?
Well, Jonathan, my routine when I come in, I'm the first one in. So normally I got to take care of the sidewalks, make sure they're clean, lobby's clean, the glass, we touch up the glass, make sure everything's top notch, because this building is an executive building, RSR building. So it's we got to be on our toes with this building. So that's normally my routine. Make sure everything's good. I do my inspections. I got my crew. They come in around 8 a.m. and I assign them each their routine every day. Make sure the bathrooms are clean, tennis floors are nice and clean. Make sure everything's running smooth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, in a building like that, there's a lot of contact with people. There's a lot of movement, again, on a normal day. So when the pandemic started, what was your first concern, both for yourself and for the people you work with?
Well, our concern was that, the pandemic was like, it was going crazy. We didn't know what to expect, to be honest. We were kind of scared ourselves, to be honest with you, Jonathan. We were required to wear gloves, our masks. They had disinfecting every day, every time. We just kept going around throughout the building, disinfecting the handles of the doors, especially the restrooms. A lot of people going to the restroom, stuff like that. So it did change our lives, to be honest with you.
And in the beginning, before it became a common thing for everybody to wear masks, did the employer give you enough personal protection equipment right off the bat, or did you have to fight for that and demand that it be there all the time?
No, Jonathan. Thank God our building, they just provide us with PPE. So we never had an issue with that. Mm-hmm. Every time we requested anything we needed, we got it.
So then I guess the other concern would have been interacting with people who are coming in and out of the building, right? Because in the beginning, not everybody was wearing masks. Not everybody took it seriously. And when I say in the beginning, I mean sort of March, April, before people understood how quickly the virus could pass and move around.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, like you said, not a lot of people, they thought it was just, people were trying, they didn't want to get into panic mode, I guess, Mm-hmm. Some people were concerned, okay, why is that person wearing a mask? Is that person sick? A lot of questions were asked.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the other thing that it occurred to me that when the pandemic started, there was very little attention paid to the cleanliness around you, to the notion that you had to be 6 feet apart, that only started. So were you able to demand that your work allow people to maintain social distancing?
Yes. Well, like you said, they started giving us instructions. Um, Elevators weren't crowded. Sometimes only two people would go into the elevator. People kept the distance, and again, they started wearing masks. You saw as the pandemic started growing, people started wearing the masks, the gloves, and stuff like that, and kept the distance. So that's as the pandemic started getting worse and worse.
And you were thinking along the same lines as me. In a big building like that, the first thing I think is I wouldn't want to get on an elevator with a bunch of people. So did you have to manage that, or you or your coworkers? Were you assigned to manage how many people could get into an elevator at once? Is that your job?
No.
Okay.
Actually, management, they're the one who provided the instructions. Us porters, like when we got to certain floors, we use the spray elevators. So those spray elevators weren't that crowded. So, I mean, we were able to maintain our distance in the elevators. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, at the same time, I assume that there were potentially some layoffs of folks that you knew, either working the building or colleagues of yours?
No, thank God, Jonathan. No, none of us got laid off. What they did to us, they had us alternating. Mm-hmm. Like half of the crew will work 1 week, the other half crew will be off, and then vice versa. We kept alternating.
So your hours were reduced?
No.
No,
none of our hours were reduced. When we got the week off, we got paid. So we didn't lose no salary neither. So we really appreciate that too.
Well, and let's make it clear, this wasn't necessarily because the employer was so generous. It's because you have a union standing behind you demanding certain conditions. So this is
correct.
A great example of why it matters in a place that has a union that can defend its workers, as opposed to so many workplaces. I'm thinking of Amazon, for example, where workers don't have a union, and basically the boss, the CEO, the company just basically treats the workers as disposable commodities who can get sick or die.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I know a lot of friends that got laid off, like you said, laid off and no union, nothing like that, And it kind of, I felt bad for them, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I guess I have to ask the question. It's a hard one. Did you have coworkers who got sick or, God forbid, passed away, or is everybody healthy?
Jonathan, thank God, none of my coworkers got sick. Thank God. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the only thing, I could be honest, I lost a family due to this pandemic, yes.
Who was that?
So I lost three uncles of mine. Yes, but they were, one had cancer, the other one was just recuperating for a brain stroke. And then my other uncle, he got sick. He don't believe in doctors. He didn't bother going, so he just thought that home remedy medicine was going to help him out. But I lost three uncles, so it was kind of hard.
At least 2 out of the 3 of them had pre-existing conditions. They already had some illnesses that made them vulnerable.
Correct. Yes.
So I know that you are an activist within 32BJ. You know lots of folks in other buildings, not just in the commercial buildings, but obviously in the apartment buildings where you've got folks who are the janitors, who are the doormen. Tell me a little bit about what's happening to them from your point of view. How are they coping with the virus right now?
Well, like you said, I got family members in 32BJ also. They work in residential areas, and they tell me the same thing. They got PPE. They also disinfecting constantly, the revolving doors. Maintain the tenant floors clean, the residential floors clean. My brother actually is a residential supporter, and he tells me some people really are can you step back when they're passing by or whatever? They're very, very scared, Mm-hmm. Even though the porters are protected, they're going through this too. They feel bad because they tend to move back, I'm passing by, so it's kind of hard, to be honest with you. You know, we
Mm.
trying to maintain, and some people just, I don't know, they just don't want to get us, I mean, us supporters too close to them, which we're not, you know.
Mm.
But they tell me the same thing. You know, they see this type of stuff.
And back in your community, when you leave work, obviously there's a lot of folks that you know in 32BJ who are also probably your friends outside of work. You pointed out your family members. What's happening in the community that you live in terms of the workers and how they're being supported, especially now that this extra unemployment, the pandemic unemployment insurance has expired? I guess from the perspective of a union activist, you see a lot of people now struggling, right?
Yes, a lot of people, and to be honest with you, Jonathan, some people they don't, you know, they're working illegally. I know
Mm.
a lot of people in my community, their family, friends, and they're not able to collect any unemployment insurance at all.
Hmm.
So they're going through rough times right now, and which it's really bad, you know. They got kids and everything, which is that's the thing. That's the worst part when you have a family and it's hard to provide for them, knowing that you don't have you know, you're not a citizen or I mean, you know, legal to be working in the states.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of rough.
And that money recently ran out for people even who were legal immigrants, and in other words, they were able to get that unemployment insurance, that extra unemployment insurance. They were able to sign up for it. But the real crazy thing about this is they're working within the community, they're going to their work, and just because they don't have this piece of paper, and now I'm talking about the undocumented folks, they can't get that extra money that helps
Correct.
them make ends meet. And is the union able to help folks like that um, access that kind of money, or basically are they being shut out now from that?
Well, the only thing I could see that I could say, Jonathan, that the community is helping out. But the local churches, you know, they give like food, you know, food, like bags of food for the people that really need it. I mean, they go and they give it to anybody basically.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's how much I see the community is doing, giving food to the people that, you know, in order to survive out here, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I
Got it.
don't see like any money issue. I mean, money wise, I don't see anything like that in my community, to be honest.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, just to circle back about one more thing that occurred to me within your building and your work. Next to your buildings, are there non-union buildings as well where you know folks who are working under worse conditions?
Well, Jonathan, since Rockefeller's all buildings, all unions,
Yeah.
no, not really. I mean, the only thing I could tell you, there's like a hotel, um, two doors down, that they're cleaners too in a hotel, and they're non-union.
Yeah.
And they, I speak to them, and they tell me they're only working 2-3 days a week. I don't know if they collect unemployment, to be honest with you, but they're non-union.
And I
But
assume also because they're not union, they don't have the personal protection equipment as much as possible when they're working because they either have to pay for it out of their own pocket. The employer might be pretty slow about getting it to them again because the places where workers have been the safest, and it's still been dangerous for folks if you think about the poultry industry, transit, the people that have been safest are the people who have unions.
yeah, I could say yes. You could say that. Yes, you could say that.
Well, because they have a voice standing up for them, right? And so I'm sure you're seeing the difference as a
Right.
32BJ member. You can make that comparison and see how much more protection and a voice you have, and the ability to say to the employer, hey, over here it's dangerous, over here it's dangerous. We can't work under these conditions, which forces them, in the best circumstances, to respond, right? I mean, in a non-union situation, I've been doing these segments since the pandemic started. In non-union places, this is where workers are dying and really suffering the most. And I gave the example of Amazon before. That is the greatest example I can think of. You've got the richest guy on the planet who basically treats his workers like disposable items.
Right. Right. Yes, I read that. I read about that in the news. It's like it's very sad, to be honest with you. It's very sad. I think he just cares about his money. That's all he cares about.
But at least among your folks, among workers who are under the 32BJ roof, you've had some been able to actually stand up for folks and make sure you have safe conditions to work during the pandemic.
Yes. I know that the union's been doing like rallies and stuff like that. You know, to get fighting to get more PPE where our union's trying to help us get hazard pay, which I don't think we're gonna get anything like that. It's just it would be a great help because we're risking our lives out here every day, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and forth.
Yeah, talk a little bit of another minute or so about this hazard pay. What are you trying to do in terms of getting hazard pay, and what's the status of that right now?
Well, I think the House had passed for us to get the hazard pay, but Trump said no, that he's not going to sign that. And I mean, we feel that he's not looking out for us because, like, again, we're risking our lives, maintaining these buildings to be nice and clean, disinfecting all the time. We're risking ourselves coming in the train and transit, and then going home back to our families. God forbid one of us go home, with this virus, and then you get your family sick. It's a big risk, Jonathan, it's a big risk.
And people have to take that risk because they can't afford to stay home, even when they're ill, because we don't have paid sick leave in this country. So people have no choice, especially, I'm sure, people
Right, that's true. We have no choice. I mean, unless we get laid, we're going to get laid off. Then, like you said, we get unemployment and the extra $600, but we never got laid off. I think as porters, we always got to be maintaining the building clean and always disinfecting.
And so because everybody needs a paycheck, there's tremendous pressure on people. Let's say you wake up and you're not feeling that great. There's a tremendous pressure to still go into work and work while you're sick sometimes.
Yeah, you could say that, but thanks to 32BJ, we got sick days, we could use, and that covers us. I mean, it covers us, and we're good, thanks to the union,
Another example of why it's so important to have a union, because in a country where you don't have paid sick leave as a national policy, it's really through a union contract that you get it. So one last question again on that. What would the hazard pay do? What would it give you? It would give you extra payment on top of what you get because of the situation you're in?
Yes. As far as I read, I think they give you $13.50 extra an hour, starting from January 27 to the present. Mm-hmm. That's what I read. So, but with Trump, I don't think we're going to get this.
All right, Hipolito, thank you very much for your time, and please stay safe out there. And as this develops, happy to have you back on the show if there's any development, but stay safe, and thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Jonathan. Nice to meet you, and stay safe likewise.